If you've been scrolling through endless listings of steel ramps, staring at the same rows of dimensions and weight limits, and still feel a knot of uncertainty about which one will actually survive a day on the job site, you're not alone. I've been there, flipping between a cheap-look aluminum option that looked good on paper and a massive, industrial-grade steel slab that seemed overkill for my small-scale deliveries. The fear of spending hard-earned cash on a ramp that either collapses under a single pallet or ends up sitting idle because it's too bulky is real. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. And in the next few minutes I'll break down whether the Bluff steel shipping container ramp 6060 truly bridges that gap between just enough and over the top. First off, let's talk about the kind of work where a 60 by 60-inch steel ramp makes sense. I run a modest mobile repair service that pops into industrial parks, construction sites, and occasionally a shipping container yard. My biggest headache has always been the moment I need to roll a service cart or a pallet jack onto a raised dock without a permanent ramp in place. The Bluff ramp fits right in the back of a medium-sized van, and because it's steel, you can tip it onto a concrete slab, a wooden platform, or the lip of a container without worrying about it bending or warping after a few uses. The material choice isn't just a marketing buzzword. It's the core reason the ramp can handle the kind of weight you'd typically see in a small to medium freight operation. Think up to a couple of 1,000 pounds spread across the surface. Now, who should actually consider buying this thing? If you're a contractor who frequently needs to load pallets of bricks, lumber, or equipment onto trailers that sit a foot or two off the ground, the Bluff ramp is a solid addition to your toolbox. It's also a good match for event organizers who set up temporary stages or vendor booths and need a safe, level transition from the parking lot to a raised platform. Even a DIY enthusiast who occasionally hauls a garden shed onto a trailer will find the extra stability worth the modest investment. On the flip side, if your everyday routine involves only a few grocery bags, a light garden cart, or you have a permanent, purpose-built dock already in place, you'll probably be better off with a lighter, foldable aluminum model that stores more easily. One of the practical strengths that stands out is the ramp's non-slip surface. The top is coated with a textured finish that feels like a gritty sidewalk underfoot. You can see the difference immediately when you push a loaded wheelbarrow up it. In a real-world test, I loaded a 1,500-pound pallet of drywall sheets onto a hand pallet jack, rolled it up the ramp, and the wheels didn't slide, even when a drizzle started. That grip factor isn't something you can gauge from a spec sheet. You notice it when you're actually moving something heavy, and the last thing you want is a sudden slip that could send the load crashing sideways. Another hidden advantage is the ramp's modular feel. The 60/60 footprint is large enough to give you a gentle incline, which reduces the effort needed to push or pull heavy items. At the same time, the edges are beveled just enough to avoid catching on the wheels of most standard equipment. I've taken it from a flat dock onto a raised container deck that's about 24 inches high, and the angle stayed comfortable. No more, I'm climbing a steep hill feeling. That kind of ergonomic benefit is easy to overlook until you're actually using the ramp for a full day's work. Of course, there are practical weaknesses to keep in mind. The biggest one is weight. A full-size steel ramp of this dimension is not something you can toss into the trunk of a compact car. Even with its relatively compact dimensions, the unit weighs close to 150 pounds, so you'll need at least 2 people to lift it onto a truck or into a van. If you're a solo operator who has to load and unload the ramp by yourself, you might find that the effort required to move it outweighs the convenience it provides. Another consideration is the lack of a built-in storage solution. Some competitors ship with folding legs or a collapsible frame that makes the whole package smaller for transport. The Bluff ramp is a solid slab. You'll need to devise your own method to keep it from sliding around on the back of a vehicle, whether that's a tie-down strap system or a custom rack. Value for money really hinges on how often you'll put the ramp to work. The price point sits in a middle range, not cheap enough to be disposable, but not so high that it feels like an industrial-grade purchase for a hobbyist. When you factor in the durability of steel, the non-slip surface, and the fact that you won't be replacing it after a few seasons, the cost amortizes quickly.